My name is Jesse McPhee, and today I want to show you how to make this unique looking end table. Let's get right after it.
I started out by deciding on the base dimensions and the top dimensions of the table. I decided on 12 by 14 for the base and 14 by 16 inches for the top. I made the top and the base out of 1 1/4 inch tubing and the links in between out of 1 inch. I decided on 27.5 inches for the total height of the table, which then let me calculate the size of the links I needed. Then I made a cut list. Now remember on the links to subtract how much they overlap based on how thick your material that you use is. Then you'll want to set the angle on your saw to 45 degrees and make your cuts. Make these as precise as possible. It'll save you a lot of time later on. After I had everything cut, then I deburred everything with the grinder. I'm using the Ironman 240 by Hobart here. It's a MIG welder, and I'm using a 75% argon, 25% CO2 shielding gas. I'm starting with the base and the top, so I'm separating all the 1 1/4 inch from the 1 inch. A corner clamp like this is super valuable. It holds things perfectly square while you weld them off. Using 1 inch pieces to support the rectangle hanging out of the clamp, I tack the inside corner and then weld down the outside of the 45. Making your cuts precise as possible and using a clamp will give you results like this. This fourth corner has not been welded yet, but you can see it lines up perfectly. This is a good sign. After tacking the inside corner and welding the last one, I'm going to tack every inside corner that was facing down, grind it flush, flip it over, clamp it to the table, and then weld off every corner and grind it. As you grind it, make sure that you take your time and go flat on one side, then turn and go flat on the other side. Don't get too carried away with rounding the corner shed. They can be sharp, and then you can come back and round them softly. If you begin by tipping your grinder different ways, then you'll end up with a piece that doesn't look very consistent. After repeating this for the base and for the little piece that sits on the base, it was time to move on and cut the sheet to turn these things into boxes. I designed a little quick rectangle on the computer and cut it out on the plasma table. Cleaned it up with a little bit of acetone and then clamped it and tacked it to the piece. Grinding the top of it flush so that it sits flush on the table. Then I welded off the sides. It's important to clamp this and to have it perfectly secure because you don't want any warpage. After that was done, I moved on to the base. I clamped this bar across the middle because it needed support. This fire here was caused by a weld spark starting the acetone rag on fire. No big deal, just dumped it into the CNC table water and put it out. Now I'm moving on to the linkage for the table. These are too small to fit into the clamp and completely weld up, so I created each half and then finished them on the table. You can measure from corner to corner diagonally to make sure that they're perfectly square. The big piece needs these two smaller pieces put inside of it before it's welded shut. It's a good idea to grind and finish the small links as much as possible before joining them. It's just easier that way. After making a little jig to support the two pieces off the side of the table, I finished up the big piece, welding it and grinding it. Took a little longer, but it wasn't a big deal. Then moving on to the top of the table, I put a support in the center of it for the linkage to attach to, cut out a piece of 16 gauge for the top, and then repeated the process that we did for the base of the table, tacking it, grinding it, and welding it. After all the rough grinding was done, I broke out the rotary sander to give a finer finish to the tabletop. Then I went back to the base, drilled 4 holes, and put the extension on top to create like a floating look and welded it from underneath. Then for the linkage, I clamped a bar to the table, clamped everything in line with that, and supported it with clamps, making sure that everything was perfectly square to each other and plumb. Something I wish I would have done a little different on this is paid attention and hidden the welds so that the links actually looked like they were floating. I did it correct on the top, but then I forgot it on the bottom. So I ended up welding the top off as well to make a consistent look. Then I stacked everything together, found the center of everything, and started attaching it to the base. After shimming the base of the table, I then attached the top and used a level to make sure everything was plumb. Just take your time, get everything perfect. Even if you've tacked it perfect, sometimes when you weld it, it'll come out of plumb, but oftentimes welding on the opposite side or just tweaking it a little bit after the fact will fix all that. I then rotary sandered as much as the surfaces as I could. I thought I may be going for a clear coat finish, but I couldn't quite get all the inconsistencies out of the surface I wanted, so I went for powder coat. I just got back from powder coat with this table and it turned out amazing. Now we're going to put some rubber feet on the bottom. To finish up close on here, I wish you could feel it, but it looks absolutely amazing and feels like $1,000,000. I don't know if you can pick that up, but yeah, there we go. It's a nice sparkly, like aged copper or something, and it's just some dust on there, but yeah, turned out real good. I'm happy with it, and I think it'll make a great gift. Thanks for joining along for this build. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, please. Let me know in the comments what you think I should build next. I'll see you in the next video.